2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brandon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
How can sex addiction and recovery create an unhealthy power dynamic in our relationship?
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery. Brandon, good topic today. How are you doing? Sounds like you had a pretty eventful weekend.
Oh my gosh, Tyler. Yeah. Well, yesterday was an interesting day. So I got back from Glacier last night, Glacier National Park. We went to Coeur d'Alene. We went to Jackson Hole. We river rafted. We rode the Hiawatha Trail. Made some memories. So it was one great family vacation, except for yesterday was my birthday. We woke up early, hopped in. We were way at the border, like Canada, and our van's AC decided not to work. And I tried to troubleshoot it and get it going. And needless to say, we spent 10 hours with 4 kids in the back of our van with no AC and the windows down on a July day. So
sounds like a delightful end to your trip and a beautiful birthday.
I had some major swass going on. just
That's why you stop at every grocery store and buy bags of ice to sit on.
We were doing that, just like ice, and I didn't realize how noisy the freeways are. My goodness. But yeah, so we were spent by the time we got home, and we're taking the car in to get the compressor fixed today.
That's good, man.
It was fun though. We saw bears and mountain goats and all kinds of stuff.
Man, I'm jealous of the trip itself. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was sweet. So anyways, summertime, favorite time of year. That's right. Great. So I wanted to talk to you about something today, and just I wanted to hopefully get into the way that this develops and how it all starts, because I think that it starts from a very young age, and it develops over time, and then we see it in relationships. So what I want to talk about is power dynamics in the relationship when it comes to sex addiction, betrayal, trauma. I would say for the most part, not every time and not all the time, but for the most part, the man and the masculine is showing up very, very weak in a relationship if he's been struggling with sex addiction, and not knowing how to show up in strength, not knowing how to show up as a powerful human being who can create security, safety, and trust in a relationship. And what happens is I see the feminine really take over and overcompensate because she's feeling a lack of security and safety. And it creates this power dynamic in the relationship where there's kind of a one up, one down power dynamic in a relationship. And I would say with sex addiction and recovery and those type of things, we see it all the time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, like just maybe paint the picture. I think of where you're going, Brown, and then we can backtrack and kind of build up to what I think you want to talk about. Excuse me. Is, if we get a couple that comes into the office and we'll just say that he's had an affair or there's some type of sexual integrity issue or an addiction or something, and she's the one who's been betrayed, that the natural way that you try to save the relationship is obviously the person who's made the mistake needs to show remorse, humility, pay penance, so to speak, try to make restitution if at all possible, which a lot of times you can't do that. And for the person who's been betrayed, it feels safe in some ways to feel like they've got control over a lot of the decisions in the relationship, over what's going to happen and what recovery might look like. And in a way, it's like offering this feeling or facade of safety to stay that way. And early on in recovery, that might work for a short period of time, but in the long run, it actually works to the detriment of the relationship itself, because the relationship that both people really want in the first place is an equal relationship focused on connection. And instead, it's now being driven by power and control, where one person is one down and that other person is one up in the relationship. And that's where couples get stuck a lot.
Yeah. And it's not the man's fault or the woman's fault every time. It's just this dynamic that just starts to happen. And it's this, this hovering behavior of, I'm watching everything you're doing. And then this other side of it, which I see the men do a lot, which is they get their self-worth from their partner. And so a lot of times they're tattletaling on themselves, just to try to be a good boy. They're playing Mr. Nice Guy. They're just doing what they think they should do in order for their wife to be happy, rather than showing up as a genuine, authentic individual and human being in that relationship. And it does what you said, Tyler. It creates this power dynamic that really wreaks havoc on the rebuild process for trust and safety in the relationship. And so, some examples. I'll give some examples, and then let's back up to talk about how this develops and why I think it develops the way that it does. And you could give some examples too, I'm sure. But when I first started doing this work, I've talked about this before. I was working under a therapist that was not good at what she was doing. But she would teach these daily check-ins that couples would do with each other. And in these check-ins, they would go over lust triggers. They'd go over, everything that they'd done wrong for the day. And that was how they'd finish their night. And the couple would come in and they'd say, gosh, like, we did check-ins, we've done it for a few weeks, and it just is making things worse. It's not getting better. So he would sit down with his tail between his legs, talk about all his failures. She would hear all the failures, feel like garbage herself, and be triggered. Yeah. And then they'd go to bed. And what do you know? That wasn't working. And he was thinking, okay, I'm going from being a dishonest person to an honest person, because now I'm revealing everything I possibly can about myself and trying to be as honest as I can be. And what do you know? All of my biggest fears are coming true. That I don't feel like I'm lovable. And what do you know? My wife's triggered. She's mad at me, and there's no safety in this relationship. And this is not really working. So that I've seen that a lot. Have you seen that, Tyler?
Yeah, all the time. Things like that. I think if as you're sharing your example, what I'd like to do is just also point out some of the principles that are actual real principles in recovery, but they sort of get twisted into this power differential thing in a way that's not healthy. So one is that he's coming and he's trying to offer transparency and honesty, which is a good thing in recovery.
I would say he's not. I would say he's not.
Well,
I challenge that.
Yeah. Well, because
trying to offer.
He's trying to, but he's doing it from a motivation of trying to control his partner's emotions
he's manipulating
rather than doing it because he honestly wants to be an honest man.
Yes.
That's one thing. The second thing is that we are looking for a way to establish safety and trust again. And sometimes there has to be some level of communication to develop safety and trust.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to my partner, if I'm the one who's done the betraying and I go to my partner, I'm like, here's everything that I've done today. I'm doing fearless truth telling. Okay. I'm trying to establish safety and trust over the long haul, even though it's painful. And that might also be a good principle. But again, it comes back to, what are the intentions for why I'm doing what I'm doing? I'll give you a really good example that just came through my email just this morning from a client of mine that said, hey, Tyler, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this. And I feel like I'm becoming a better man. I feel like I'm getting more on solid ground. I feel like I'm personally feeling better about myself. But my wife keeps coming to me and saying, how come you're not doing all of the stuff you're supposed to do? This. And he's like, what do I do with that? Like, because if I go and do all of the things she's telling me, that's not what I really think I need to be doing. But then she says I'm not working recovery if I don't do that. And then I'm going to lose her. She's probably going to divorce me. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And they're stuck in this kind of wrangling place right now where, yes, he needs to look at some of the things she's saying, but he's got to filter them through his system and say, would that be helpful for me to become the best kind of man I want to be?
Right.
Not, I better hurry and jump over and do all the things she's telling me to, because then that way it'll build safety and trust, and then she won't leave me.
Right. I mean, I really like the analogy of the wind and the trees. You know, if the masculine is the tree, then the masculine is rooted and grounded and firm and solid, right? And the wind is creative and beautiful and moving and flowing. And when the wind comes up against that tree, if that tree all of a sudden tries to become the wind because it hates itself as a tree or shouldn't be a tree, then that wind doesn't feel the strength of that tree, right? But when the wind and the tree works together, the wind comes up against the tree and feels safe and feels good there. And the tree is strengthened by the wind because the wind is pushing against the tree. And in the example that you just gave, Tyler, what I'm hearing him say is, should I become the wind? Because I'm worried if I stay a tree, she's not going to be able to tolerate that. She's not going to be able to accept that. And so should I just become what she's telling me that I should be, rather than just be me? And the answer to that is, and I'll give an answer here to this, but I really do want to back up to show how this whole dynamic is created. The answer to that is he does stay a tree, and he does it in a way where he's very connected to the wind and very empathetic and understanding, and can see her and see her pain and her beauty and all of what's going on with her, so that she feels that connection, but she feels that grounded strength and solidarity as who he is as a man, right? And that's where real strength is found. And somebody with a lot of shame and secrecy, addiction behind the scene can't ground themselves that strongly in order to create that safety with their partner. And so what they attempt to do when they have a lot of shame going on is to, instead of stay who they are, they shapeshift, they pose, they become Mr. Nice Guy, and they try to become what they need to be.
In order to not lose their wife.
In order to not lose their wife, in order to not be abandoned and rejected and left alone. So can we back up now, Tyler, a little bit?
Yeah. Yep.
So let's back way up. Okay. Early stages of life. You know, I have young kids and they're learning about sex, and you know, that's a whole other discussion how we learn about sex. But one thing that is pretty pervasive across the board is that sex is bad. You know, you turn on a movie and the sex scene comes on, and what does the parents say? That's the bad part. Fast forward it. You know, that if you're touching yourself, you know, you tell your kid, hey, stop it, or go somewhere where we can't see you, you know. And there's there's this message overall that sexuality and sex is sinful and wrong and bad. And so naturally, we all don't know what to do with this because we're all sexual beings. And so we try to figure out how to live, but have this thing be hidden a little bit underground.
We're trying to learn in the dark, basically.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting everybody should walk around with their pants down. That's not what I'm saying, right, Tyler?
Of course not.
Yeah, but we try to learn in the dark. I like how you say that. But there's this subtle kind of message, and both men and women have it, of that part of me is naughty, needs to be hidden and not okay, right? And so as sexual addiction starts to take hold, and let's just talk about a man for a minute, a young man, 12, 13 years old, starts to consume pornography, starts to get these feelings of power and excitement and all of those things from engaging in sexual acts, and usually with pornography involving women, right? Mm-hmm. Not all the time, but the reason I say that is to make this point is they start to turn the sex into their God in many ways. This makes me feel good. It makes me feel okay in this very secretive.
It's where I get to cope and feel okay with myself for a minute.
For just a split second, I feel like the world is just fine, and I have pleasure, and I have escape, and I have release, and that's where I feel okay, right? So sexuality, sex, women, that's where you feel okay, is to please a woman, is to experience that ultimate.
That's where I know I'm good enough.
That I'm good enough, right? So, but then what happens after the acting out?
Then of course I feel weak. I feel like I let my values go. I feel more shame, or I feel numb. I feel empty.
Right. I'm unlovable. I'm horrible. I'm not okay. And so you can go ahead.
And all the while, just adding on to that, Brandon, is especially if we're looking at it from like the pornography standpoint, the vast majority of pornography is based on a power and control type of a setting and not necessarily a connection type of setting. So even just subversively and subconsciously, the messaging is being sent power and control, power and control, power and control. Even in the way that I'm educating myself about sexuality.
Right. So this whole thing that we're talking about, you can see the whole dynamic starting to get created here, right? I feel good when I please, I feel good when I'm sexual, and I feel horrible when I'm found out, or when I feel like I've let somebody down. Okay. And so, fast forward into a relationship, and you get into this relationship, and maybe you told your partner about your addictions or whatever. Maybe you didn't, but you get into that relationship and you start to view intimacy and connection completely backwards. I need to please them in order for them to love me and accept me.
I'll be good enough.
And then I'll be good enough. And that is not intimacy at all. That's something completely different.
It's consumption, right? Actually. It's where I'm now consuming my partner for my benefit because I can't fill the void any other way.
Right. But it's a very tricky form of consumption, Tyler, because in large part we could look at it and say, no, that's very selfless and kind to try to always please your partner. But it's tricky.
Right. Well, exactly. And I'm doing it even when I'm in the midst of doing it. If I'm the one doing the consuming, I think that I'm being a good husband, even though I'm being kind of self-serving and selfish in the way that I'm going about it, because I'm still trying to get my value either by placing myself in the one down and making her happy all the time, or maybe I'm on the other side placing myself in the one up and she's now feeling one down and being controlled. Either way, it fosters a feeling of less connection and less trust, even though what I think I'm pursuing is connection.
Yes. The difference is honesty versus that whole game of trying to manipulate her to think that you're good enough and okay. So like, and this is how you see it. Like, I might lack boundaries in my relationship. I was just hearing stories last night about a relationship where, the wife is very verbally, emotionally abusive, and he's just taking it and taking it and taking it, right? He's like a battered husband, but he just takes it because he feels like he deserves it.
He deserves it. He earned it. That's
right.
The least that he could take, because she'll never be able to do what he did to her.
Right. It reminds me of our episode with Scott that we talked about, right? He was talking about this dynamic of, I felt like I never had a leg to stand on. And so basically what he's saying is, I felt like I could never be really honest in my relationship. Do you see how's he going to create safety and trust?
Exactly. It doesn't, there's no foundation for safety and trust, because there actually has to be integrity and honesty there.
Right. So the lack of boundaries is one, Tyler. The other one, and you can think of, I'm sure, a bunch more here, but is secrecy. It's, I want them to accept me. I need them to be happy. Therefore, I'm not going to show them the blemish because I'm protecting them. I want to protect them, and I want to be a good husband, and I don't want to hurt her. So why would I tell her that secret that would hurt her? Right? You can see the manipulation there.
Right. But it's done from that moral place of like, I'm going to be the good guy and not hurt her.
Yeah. I'll talk to my therapist about it. Or
even though it's self-protective.
It's completely self-protective, right?
Or they'll say, or someone will say, well, it's really not that big of a deal. So why would I need to tell them? And I say, well, if it's not that big of a deal, then you shouldn't have a problem telling them.
Well, Tyler, it kind of sounds like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. And I want to clarify something, because we're saying, don't set up a tattletale hovering situation in your marriage. But here's the deal. Healthy disclosure is about maintaining your integrity on an individual level first and foremost. So, and that's really important to understand, is I need to go talk to a partner about something because it affects their life. And I value trust, I value love. And so therefore I'm going to own that so that I can stay in my integrity. Is very, very, very different than, my therapist and my sponsor and everyone tells me that I should tell on myself. So I'm going to go do that so that they can see that I'm a good boy, so that I'm okay, so that everything's okay.
Yes. Well, and there's a difference, Brandon, between having the integrity of being honest with who you are and where you are in your program versus showing up every day and tattling on yourself with the work that you actually did for the day. Right?
Yeah.
Like if I go to my wife and I'm showing up with integrity and I say, you know what? I have mistreated my sexuality and I'm trying to learn how to be healthier with this. And in the day-to-day, there are going to be things that are triggering for me. There's going to be work for me to do. I'm willing and ready to engage in that work. That's different than showing up and being like, okay, check-ins today. At 2:00, I saw this woman doing this. Yeah. And at 4:00, I saw this woman in these clothes. Right. And then that's, you can hear and feel the difference between, this is who I am and this is the work that I'm doing, versus like, she wants to hear something. So I better hurry and find out what I can do to make sure that she hears me being bad, so that then she thinks I'm being honest.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. The difference really is fear-based and control, and one that comes from a place of love and honesty and integrity. And those energies are so different. Like you can feel it. And so if you're maintaining transparency in your relationship out of keeping your integrity, your partner's going to feel strength from you. If you're tattletaling on yourself to try to be, in quotation marks, honest, then your partner's going to feel that.
Yeah. When it's coming from that fear-based place, it doesn't even matter what the task list is that you're doing. It's the way that you're doing it that your partner feels and goes, ooh, that doesn't feel good. you know?
Yes.
And I'll get couples who get further into recovery work, and she'll come into the office and she'll say like, why do I see him as so weak and I despise him and he's so small? And he's coming and going like, guys, I'm being honest. Like I'm telling him everything. And she's like, yeah, he is so unattractive to me right now.
Well, it's really, Tyler, it's really confusing for the partner.
Yeah. Well, 100%, because in some ways there's this, actually, I think they've been taught to do things a certain way. And again, based off of principle, we're trying to teach accountability, safety, boundaries, trust, and the practice sometimes is messy. Mm-hmm. And so, but people get comfortable in the space of like, okay, now that at least there's this transparency in quotes, or at least there's this like open disclosure every day in quotes. But how come I'm not like building respect for my partner again? How come I'm not feeling like I want to,
like I respect him less?
Yeah. In some ways,
like he's like groveling. He's just like, ugh. Yeah.
And it doesn't feel safe in the relationship to have that. But if you flip it around and you get like, let's say a man who actually starts to actually have his own boundaries, share his own opinions, maybe even like be more integrous with his behavior and say, hey, this thing doesn't work for me. I know you want me to
own his sexuality.
Yeah.
And honor it and who
exactly.
he is.
Or, hey, I know you want me to go to 5 12-step meetings a week, but I think I'm going to do 2 and instead, and that's going to be enough for me. A lot of times a partner gets scared by that. Mm-hmm. And she wants it to go back to what was normal, because that's at least feels like normal now, but she also doesn't like that. And there's this hump that couples have to figure out how to get through, where as they get in deeper into recovery, she has to go, okay, I'm glad he's pushing back a little bit, as long as it's pushing back with the right energy, because now I've got a partner that I can interact with again, instead of someone that I'm basically dictating everything to.
Yep. Have I told you about the guy that I had to like start? Well, here's the story. This guy was masturbating every month or 6 weeks or something, and he'd look at porn and masturbate, and it would happen like clockwork, just happen. And they go through the same dynamic where he would do it. He would, stick his head down and go tell her, and she would kind of get really mad and tell him to go sleep somewhere else and for a few days. And then, 4 weeks later, there they were again. And it was happening again and again and again. And so he's talking to me, and I'm like, well, why don't you just tell her that you want to masturbate? And he looked at me like, what? Like, you're supposed to tell me the opposite of that. And I said, but let's just look at this. This was going on for like 6 years. I was like, this has been going on for 6 years. You obviously want to masturbate. You're masturbating, every so often. Like, tell her that you want to masturbate. Just own it. Be open about it. Own who you are, instead of acting like you don't, and then, paying, your penance to her. Like, just own it. And this hump that you're talking about, when she heard this coming from me, what do you think she did?
Oh, I mean, I can imagine what I can hear our listeners saying through the radio right now.
Right.
Like, right. No, don't do that. Like, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. And she was terrified. Like, what are you saying to him? And but here's the thing. So it happened. He came to her beforehand and said, I want to masturbate. I'm being honest. Like, I'm probably going to tonight. And she hated it, and she liked it, what happened. And this is the reason why I'm telling this story. She hated it because she felt unsafe and she was triggered and all those things happened. But she felt just a glimmer bit of his transparency and honesty with who he actually was, which he had never shown her for 6 years. Right. And it's interesting, as he owned it more and was more actually honest with her, that desire started to go away, and real trust started to be reestablished in that relationship. But here's my point. it's about transparency, and it's about owning yourself and who you actually are. Should he masturbate? Should he not? That's another topic of discussion. Should he be an honest human being? Yes.
Yeah, I think in your story, the principle that you're really drawing out here is that he is going to be better off in his own recovery journey if he's just living with integrity and owning exactly where he's at with the work he's doing and where he wants to be going. They as a couple have a better shot of having things work out when there's integrity in the relationship, even if it's scary and something that has to be dealt with, passed through. She's probably still going to have her own responses and her own boundaries over the things that he chooses to do, but at least they're on real ground with where the work is actually at, instead of living in some fantasy land where he wasn't really he wasn't committed to stopping masturbating. So what you're saying is why don't you get honest with yourself first and with her? And then I would even add to that, again, this would be a spur up to another episode or something, but he doesn't even have to act on the masturbation to still live with integrity, to say, hey, I want to. Like, there's a part of me that doesn't want to give this up. And just for him to be able to have the space to be honest about that now allows him the space to make the choices that he needs to make for him to live his best life,
right?
Rather than like to lie to his wife every 6 weeks and be like, okay, I'll get better. Like,
he had to live in denial. He had to justify, rationalize, kind of trick his brain and create thinking errors in order to keep this dynamic going, right? And in living in that denial, he was breaking trust because he wasn't living in honesty, and no safety in the relationship was being created. So,
right. Well, and the thing, Brandon, like with the example you gave is that might be the kind of thing that a relationship eventually breaks over if there's two value systems that don't line up with each other. But
sure.
But at least it moves it to a place where we can see that those value systems either do or they don't line up with one another. And I also think that in your situation, that the story that you told is that when he started to take ownership and not have to feel like he was hiding everything, somehow that contributed to him having less and less desire to act out in the first place.
Yeah. Well, and if we really psychoanalyze it, I think it took away what he was really kind of the game he was playing. And so when it took away the game he was playing, it took away a lot of the power and energy around that thing.
Back to power and control too.
Yeah. And so then it was like, oh, well, yeah, that's how I used to get my wife's attention. I'd masturbate and then she'd be mad at me. So at least I'd get that attention. But now like that's kind of gone. So now what, and it's just interesting that truth does set you free, and truth and honesty does actually give trust a chance. Anything else doesn't. Any kind of manipulation actually is a detriment toward trust. And to think that if I can manipulate my way into safety and trust in a relationship, then you're crazy. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. And then, okay, so then what ends up happening is you get deeper and deeper into a relationship, and then D-Day happens, and now all of a sudden this thing blows up. And then on the other side of things, in order to find safety, we teach a partner who's been betrayed, you need to ground yourself, you need a team, you need to start setting boundaries for yourself. And a lot of times those boundaries, they're geared towards safety, but they end up actually in the long run contributing to that power differential in the relationship that we're actually trying to break away from.
Well, they're the laundry list of this is what you do to be good enough.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If you want to call that boundaries, sometimes that's what boundaries sound like, is that you do this, and this, and this, and this, and then I'll trust you.
Which I wouldn't call boundaries. Yeah.
Right. Because boundaries have to come again from the inside out.
Yes.
Where I'm operating from my integrity, saying this or this thing does work for me, and because of that, this is going to be my response. Right. It's not about controlling or changing the other person. It's about knowing that I can trust myself to take care of myself, given what the realities of my situation are. But instead, the relationship becomes this one up, one down thing. And by nature, it's like, Brandon, if I went and if I came down to your place today and I said, you know what, Like, I like your truck and I like your camp trailer and your boat, and I'm just going to take it. And I just drive off with it and take it. Right. And then afterwards you're mad at me and you're like, what did you just do, Tyler? Like, if I want to repair the relationship with you, I'm probably going to need to have some humility. I'm going to need to probably try to make restitution. I'm going to have to give your stuff back, and I'm going to have to be like, hey, Brent, I'm sorry. I was kind of being a jerk. Like,
well, first off, if you want it, you can have it.
Yeah.
It's all yours.
Thanks for taking the high road. No, but I'm going to need to do something to try to repair the relationship. And that's where I think there's this other place where we get caught sometimes is if I'm trying to repair the relationship, it's very easy to fall into the trap of staying in the one down position. And there's a difference between being able to be remorseful, make restitution, and be humble without having to always stay in this place where I have to be the schmuck in the relationship. Right.
Yeah, but here's the deal, Tyler. This is I appreciate what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but this is what happens. Is like I was hiking in Glacier the other day, and there was these berries. And let's say I ate a berry and I got sick. Right? What happens a lot of times? What I see is that they keep eating the same berries that made them sick in order to try to get better. Right?
That's right.
And so it's and this is the shift that needs to happen. You're absolutely right. You need to do something to repair trust with me, Tyler. And the very last thing you need to do is to be a dishonest jerk who's manipulating me to see you as good. That's not what I want. What I'd like for you to do instead is to actually show up completely different. So, and this is the hard thing in recovery, Tyler, because what we're saying to these addicts who have been living this way for their whole life is instead of showing up as a person that you think is unlovable, show up as a powerful man with healthy masculinity that you know is lovable. And even if you don't fully feel that, show up that way anyways. Stand in that, there's this threshold, there's this void that they have to stand in, that uncomfortable, vulnerable place of, I really am an honest, open, transparent human being. And I can tolerate other people's judgments and discomfort around me being honest. And apply that to the equation instead. Right? That's a new berry.
Okay, good. You and I are on the same page. I'll give you one real quick story. I know we're getting short on time here, but this happened just this weekend.
Okay.
I was backpacking with my family in Wyoming in the Wind River Mountains, and I ended up getting a ticket this time. I didn't read the regulations well enough. And
you always get tickets, man.
No, I usually get out of them. I usually can talk my way out of them. But this was a pure honest mistake. I read through the regulations. Somehow I missed this one regulation. It's a big one. It's like the biggest one you can get. And so I got like a $550 ticket.
Oh,
and
ouch.
And the officer's writing me up for it. And as he's telling me like everything that I did wrong, I was like, oh yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Were you like pooping in the woods where you shouldn't have or
something? No, I took a piece of motorized equipment into wilderness land, and I didn't.
Oh man, you should know better than that one. I don't want to shit on you, but
I know I should know better. But anyway, I didn't know better. I thought I did, but he's basically reading me the riot act, and I just said, yeah, okay. Thanks for the education. You're right. I did that. I'm sorry about that. I'll definitely learn from it. I'll get better at it. I appreciate the education. And then he writes me the ticket. He hands it to me, and I was like, thank you. Thanks a lot for the education. I'm going to get better at this. And he looked at me. He's like, you're the first person who's thanked me. He's like, this is the biggest ticket that we write for anybody. And I said, yeah. He said, well, usually people take it differently than this. And I said, no, I appreciate it. Like I made the mistake. I should have done the learning. I'm going to do the learning. I'll get better.
Right.
Like that's a much different kind of an approach to an apology and restitution than, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. Like, yeah, you're right. I should never come back here and go backpacking again. Like,
right.
There's integrity inside of the there's still humility. There's still some type of restitution to the tune of $540. Like there's gonna be something that I can do, and I'm gonna do some learning, and I'm willing to do that learning. But that's different than just that poison berry of like, yeah, you're right, I'm terrible.
Well, but I'd add this on to it, Tyler, and I think you were acting in your truth when you said thank you. Like you absolutely learned, and you were grateful.
I wasn't being sarcastic.
Right. But I don't think you were being passive either. Like, and here's the deal. What if he would have given you a ticket that you thought was totally unjust? That it wasn't right. And if you're saying thank you, I'm learning, thank you so much. That's,
yeah, right.
Right. What would you do in that situation?
Well, I would tell him thanks for the education. Then I'd say, I guess I'm going to have to appear in court and talk this through with the judge because I don't agree with it. Or the other thing that happened is that we were off of the trail where we had been at, where we were at. There was another infraction that everybody does. If I would have gotten a ticket for that one, I would have had a discussion with them and said, hey, there were 6 other parties that were doing the same thing. So it doesn't seem right that we'd be the ones getting the infraction when there's 6 other parties, right? But right. He decided not to give us that ticket because he knew that wouldn't be fair or just.
But the point that I want to highlight here is because in the dynamic, the one up, one down dynamic, you could go to your partner and say, thank you for teaching me. Thank you for being mad at me. Thank you for, and there's some humility and there's some truth there. But there's also a time when it's, okay, that's enough. Like that, this is my truth here. And I want to bring my humility to the table, but I want to bring my honesty to the table at the same time so that you can feel my strength. You can see all of me, both sides there, right?
That's right.
So good discussion, Tyler.
Great discussion. Hopefully this is helpful for our listeners.
Yeah. Hey, really quick, if somebody wants to come on the show, again, where do they go?
Yeah, we've been stacked up with questions, but if you'd like to be a caller on the show, we have some openings in the near future. therapybros.com or realtalkrecovery.com. And there's a button you'll smash that says ask a question. And then you guys can follow that protocol. We'd love to have you come on. We love having discussions with real people. So
any questions,
bring them.
Yep. All right. Have a good one, guys. See ya.
Thanks. Hey, Brandon, what does the Rising Sun Retreat include?
Well, not only is it your lodging, excellent food by a professional chef, brotherhood with a bunch of guys who are there to heal, but it's so much more. If you don't believe me, don't take my word for it. Listen to what they have to say.
If I had a friend who was contemplating attending this conference, I would say do it. Sign up as soon as you can.
Man, you got to do it. You got to do it. I'll be you guys' advertising arm because I'm going to tell everybody I know about this conference.
Oh man, I would say again, I have nothing but positive things to say about it. So
there's no reason not to come.
Definitely attend.
If you have the means, it would be a mistake not to come.
Do it. You won't be disappointed.
Well, I would say it takes a leap of faith to come to one of these things because you're not going to know what it's going to be coming into it, and it's completely worth it.
Just go for it.
So I would tell that friend that he should definitely come.
It is definitely worth the time, the effort, the money.
If you have any thought whatsoever whether or not you should go, just go.
Even after I signed up, I told my wife I didn't want to come the first day. I was like nervous as all get out. I knew it was going to be uncomfortable, everything about it. But I would look at that person and say, you will never regret.
To help you to know how to find the joy that you're seeking in your life, to do this, take it seriously, and add it to your regimen moving forward. It has been powerful, just incredibly powerful.
If you're interested in attending our next Rising Sun retreat, go to risingsun.org, risingsun.org, and check out more stories like this.
Hurry up because space is limited.